Hello everyone, factoring into today's video, going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days first of all in today's video, and then we'll have a look at the weather for the next month from SFSV2. That takes us towards the end of June, can you believe? So we've got quite a complicated patterns coming up later this week. It looks like we're going to be getting high pressure building to the north and low pressure down to the south of the country. So quite a block scenario re-emerging, I think, as we get through to the weekend. Actually, I'll have a look at the Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation today as well. Signs of blocking coming back, and low pressure perhaps coming underneath that blocking, turning the south quite unsettled. But it is an uncertain one, so not sure exactly on the detail of what's going on still at the weekend and into next week. By the way, there'll be a new bank holiday update this evening, having a detailed look at the bank holiday weekend. Before I get on with all of that though, just say about the ads. There's links to articles on all of the pages. Have a browse through widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. Thanks so much for doing that. This video adds to most of the pages which open up for content. When you watch them and close back up again, it helps to pay for gasovits.com. Just before we start off with Central England temperature, we're into the last week of the month, of course, now. So provisionally from Hadley for May, we still stand at 12.7, which is an anomaly of 1.7 degrees above average. That's provisional up to the 23rd, so still significantly warmer than average month, and I think that's going to continue really for the next week, the final week of the month, looking like being a bit warmer than average as well. This will probably be corrected downwards a little bit as we get through to the end of the month, so it won't be quite such a big deviation, but nevertheless I think we're going to come out at least a degree, maybe even a degree and a half warmer than average. The Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation are starting to trend negative, so we'll have a look at the Arctic Oscillation first. But remember, this is a reflection of the state of the atmosphere over the Arctic, over the North Pole. It's not driving anything, it's just telling us what the atmosphere is doing. When the Arctic Oscillation is positive, it shows that you've got low pressure over the pole, and when it's negative, it shows that you've got high pressure over the pole. You've got blocking around Greenland and around the North Pole. So that you see at the moment the Arctic Oscillation is generally quite positive. The black line here is where the Arctic Oscillation has been, and the red lines at the end where the Arctic Oscillation is forecast to go. At the moment, we're really quite positive with the Arctic Oscillation, but a big drop looks like it's on the way as you get through to the end of May and into the start of June. Going negative, that's telling us that high pressure and blocking is re-emerging over Greenland and over the North Pole. Now in winter, this is very often a signal for colder conditions. Not always, because it does depend where the blocking is sitting, but it's very often a signal for colder conditions in the winter. In summer, it can be significantly cool, but it can also be warm. Again, it just depends where the blocking is sitting, but usually if you've got blocking over the pole in summer, we will tend to be quite unsettled with low pressure, especially if that blocking is sitting around Greenland, low pressure tending to be travelling underneath it into the UK. But definitely signals there that high pressure is coming back towards Greenland and the North Pole. At the same time, juxtaposed to that, it looks like the North Atlantic Oscillation, which again is a reflection of the state of the atmosphere, this time in the North Atlantic, looks like that's going negative as well. At the moment, we're hovering around neutral. We haven't been as positive with the North Atlantic Oscillation as we have with the Arctic Oscillation. We've just been hovering around neutral, but it looks like we're going to be trending negative with the NAO over the coming week or so. Again, this is the 1st of June, just here, when all those red lines, the ensemble members of the GFS model, are trending down into negative territory. This is a reflection of the state of the atmosphere between Iceland and the Azores. When the North Atlantic Oscillation is positive, we've got high pressure around the Azores and low pressure around Iceland. When it's negative, it's usually the reverse. So you'll have high pressure around Iceland and low pressure through the mid-latitudes into the Azores. Again, in winter, that's often a signal for cold conditions. In summer, it can be cool. It could be warm, actually, potentially in summer. But usually, the main thing is that it will be unsettled with low pressure going underneath the blocking that's set up around Iceland and Greenland. So let's have a look at the generic charts. This is the GFS model for Saturday, and it's a good reflection of those Arctic and North Atlantic oscillation charts. Actually, you've got high pressure here to the north of Scotland. It stretches towards Iceland and also goes back to Scandinavia, and then underneath it we've got these areas of low pressure travelling through the Atlantic rather like that. The reason in winter this is nearly always a cold scenario is that in winter the air is coming from the east. It's coming from the east in summer, but in winter this is generally quite cold. As you follow the ice bars back, the air will be originating from Iceland or Scandinavia, somewhere around here. In summer, though, although it still an easterly flow, of course the continent is much warmer. The landmass has warmed up by the strength of the sun. So you tend to drag in fairly warm air, actually, with easterly winds in summer. But these areas of low pressure provide the energy, travelling underneath all this high pressure. They're providing the energy for unsettled conditions. And you can get a great deal more rain in summer than you can in winter, purely because the atmosphere is warmer, so it holds more moisture. And that, in this sort of scenario, can fall as quite heavy rain. So that's how we're looking on Saturday. We go through into Sunday and into Bank Holiday Monday, and notice low pressure is developing to the south and the east underneath that high pressure. There's the high pressure up there around Iceland and actually going up towards the North Pole and Greenland. There's the low pressure to the south of it and just here as well. And these areas of low pressure could be providing quite unsettled conditions over Bank Holiday weekend. We'll have a look at that in detail this evening. Low pressure hanging around into the start of a working week, which of course next week is Tuesday, the 31st of May, and everybody goes back to work after Bank Holiday weekend. But low pressure is over country, still producing showers or longer spells of rain. And then we go through into the start of June. This is the 1st of June on into the 2nd of June. Look at this, a really blocked scenario. High pressure really strong at 1035 millibars around Iceland. Got all of the low pressure underneath it. So the broad picture is staying the same, which is blocking to the north, low pressure to the south, and that could be quite unsettled going into next week, especially for the south of the country. Just have a look on day 10, which is Friday the 3rd of June. Again, very blocked scenario around Greenland and Iceland with all of this low pressure underneath it. So got to be watching out next week. I don't think temperatures will be too bad, although later on they might start to cool down a bit as winds go a bit northeasterly. But more than the temperatures, I think the rainfall could be the story over Bank Holiday weekend and into next week. Certainly with chance of some heavy showers, maybe even longer spells of rain. The ECMWF very similar as we go into the weekend. We find low pressure. It's a little bit more centred over Europe, actually, on Bank Holiday Monday. So it's over Germany. It may not threaten the UK quite as much as the GFS does with outbreaks of rain. But it's the same broad pattern, and it's just the fact that we've got to narrow down the detail, which in this kind of block pattern is going to be chopping and changing. But the idea is still the high pressure to be blocking generally to the north, and low pressure is to the south. We've just got to work out exactly where that low pressure is. This is how we're looking on the 1st of June with the east end of the earth, and again high pressure around Greenland and Iceland, low pressure to the south. We're bringing down that northeasterly wind, which could be quite cool actually into the middle part of next week. Day 10 looks like this. No real change to the pattern. The high pressure is there to the north. We've got low pressure again through the Atlantic and across central parts of Europe. So watch out for showers in the south. The north tending to get the driest conditions. Let's have a quick look at CFSV2 for the coming month before I go. So these are the 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods. The first week period taking us from the 24th through to the 30th of May. It's a good reflection of what we've just been looking at actually with those generic charts. We've got the blocking feature to the north of the country, still placing a bit of low pressure around Greenland. I mean, low pressure is going to the south of that blocking. The flow is in from the east, so it should be fairly warm, but this low pressure is trying to push up unsettled conditions from the south. Week 2, the 31st of May through to 6th of June, shows high pressure centred around Iceland. Look at all this red here that's going back into North Pole. If this was winter, this would really mean business for very cold conditions. That's really extensive blocking there around Greenland, Iceland, going into the North Pole as well. Again, trough of low pressure through the Atlantic, and probably weak pressure through Central Europe as well. Could certainly be showers or maybe thunderstorms in the south and the east, but flow is in from the east or the northeast. Now, week 3 sees quite a significant change. This is the 7th through to the 13th of June. And the ridge is still there around Iceland, so still lots of blocking around Greenland, Iceland, and it's sending back into the pole. But a trough of low pressure is setting up and centering over Scandinavia, and that trough of low pressure in the Atlantic is getting closer. So this is turning more unsettled, really, with this area of low pressure, or these areas of low pressure, possibly forming quite a big depression around the north and west of Europe. So I would think that second week of June could see much more unsettled conditions and probably quite cool conditions as well. And then finally, week 4, going from the 14th through to the 20th of June, this one looks unsettled as well. Low pressure is centred across Scotland. The flow's back in off the Atlantic now. Probably a return of the westerlies there as we're going through into middle of June, and could be quite unsettled conditions as well. That is running up towards Glastonbury and Wimbledon as well, of course, as we get through towards the second half of June. So probably don't want to be thinking about Westies returning if you've got anything invested in those events. But the nearer time frame, it's all about the blocking, really. It looks like we've got very, very extensive blocking coming back around Iceland and Greenland and the North Pole. We're probably going to get low pressure going underneath that blocking we normally do in summer. So expect showers, if nothing else, from the weekend and through into next week. They could be heavy and thundery, possibly even merging into some longer spells of rain as well. The plus side is that with winds from the east, at least initially, temperatures should be quite warm. But they may start to cool off a bit next week, actually, if that blocking sends the winds into the north and the northeast. It could turn a bit cooler as well. That's it for now. I'll be doing the bank holiday weekend update this evening. Of course, tomorrow we've got the 5-day forecast. Of course, it's Wednesday tomorrow, isn't it? So it's a 5-day forecast, and we'll also have a look at the Beijing Climate Centre for the coming month. So come back for that tomorrow. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.